The rain had not stopped for 3 days. The streets outside Delcroix International shimmered with puddles as office workers rushed toward the glass tower, their umbrellas flapping like restless wings in the morning wind. Inside the lobby, sleek, with marble and minimalist design, everything was polished and pristine. Soft instrumental music filled the background, drowned only by the hurried steps of those late to meetings or typing frantically on phones amid the sharp suits and clacking heels. One figure moved slowly, unnoticed, unbothered. A janitor, pushing a mop bucket that squeaked faintly as he rolled across the floor. His name tag read him. Alvarez, though most never looked long enough to read it. Mateo was in his early 60s. Weary, his once black hair now dusted with grey, his face was carved with quiet stories no one ever asked about. His eyes were steady but carried something distant, a heaviness not born from labor, but from silence. Every movement he made was deliberate, careful. His uniform was worn but clean, and his presence, though consistent, was practically invisible to the world above him. As he moved through the quiet corridor leading to the elevator, he watched people, without staring, taking in fragments of conversations, glances, emotions. He noticed who lingered at the vending machine too long, who always left with red eyes, who smiled only for clients. But he never interrupted. He was a man of observation, not noise. On the 15th floor, Emily burst through the glass doors of the HR department. Her long brown hair was half-soaked despite her umbrella, and her glasses fogged as soon as she stepped inside. She clutched her laptop and to coffee cups and fumbled with the files under her arm. She was 25, full of nervous energy, and trying her best to prove herself in an ocean of indifferent executives she had joined Delcroix International 6 weeks ago, and every day she fought the voice inside that told her she wasn't good enough. Only one person in the whole building consistently noticed her greetings, Mateo. She saw him every morning. He never said much, just a soft buenos dias, señorita, and a nod. But it was the one interaction that felt real. This morning, as she rushed past the janitor's closet near the service elevator, she heard something strange. It wasn't music or a podcast. It was someone talking, but in fluent German. She paused. Curiosity outweighed her rush. Peeking inside, she saw Mateo, sitting cross-legged on a crate beside his mop bucket, his small radio beside him turned off. He was speaking to himself, practicing something. Then he switched to French, then to Portuguese, then Russian, Japanese, Chinese. Emily stood frozen. He noticed her too late. She stepped in slowly. Stunned, you speak all that. Mateo looked up, calm as ever, and shrugged. Un poco di todo. She blinked, almost disbelieving. How many languages? He considered for a moment, then held up 9 fingers. Why are you here? Cleaning floors, she asked. Genuinely bewildered. Mateo offered her a tired smile. It's a long story. Señorita, elsewhere in the building, the air was tense. John Knox, the CEO of Delcroix, stood in the boardroom on the top floor, his arms crossed tightly across his chest. He was tall, sharply dressed in black, with dark eyes and a voice that could freeze a room. His reputation was known citywide, ruthless, brilliant, and deeply impatient. They were preparing for the most important meeting in the company's history. A multinational negotiation involving France, Germany, Japan, Brazil, Russia, and China. The plan was airtight. High-level interpreters had been scheduled weeks ago to translate live, making real-time negotiations possible. But a freak blackout in the translation agency's part of town left the interpreters stranded. Traffic was frozen. GPS wasn't working. Even backup translators were unreachable. The team panicked. Jordan did not, but the pressure around him intensified. His fingers drummed on the table as executives murmured and shifted in discomfort. "You want me to present a global merger worth $500 million with a smile and a phrasebook?" he asked coldly. "Sir," the head of HR said nervously, "we're calling alternatives." Emily stepped in just then, breathless. "Mr. Knox, I know someone who can help." Jordan turned slowly, skeptical and visibly irritated. "If this isn't an interpreter with wings, I don't want to hear it." "He speaks 9 languages," Emily said, catching her breath fluently. "He's already in the building." Jordan narrowed his eyes. "Who?" She hesitated. "Matteo, the janitor." Laughter rang out from one executive. Jordan did not laugh. "Is this a joke?" "No. I heard him. He can do it. Please. We don't have another option." Jordan glared at her for a long moment. "Bring him up." When? Matteo stepped into the gleaming boardroom minutes later, dressed in his janitor uniform. The air shifted. Executives blinked in confusion. The foreign investors exchanged glances. Jordan introduced him without ceremony. "This is Matteo. He's here to help translate." There was visible discomfort. A French delegate muttered something under his breath. The German businessman checked his watch. The room was moments away from collapse. Then Matteo spoke to the French investor. "Je suis ravi de vous accueillir, monsieur. Votre volume s'est bien passé." His accent was fluid, unmistakably Parisian. The man's expression changed. He answered, and Matteo responded naturally. Laughter followed to the German investor. "Willkommen bei Delcroix. Ich hoffe Sie hatten in angenehm Reis." The man blinked, then nodded, responding quickly. Portuguese came next, then Mandarin, then Japanese, then Russian. Each time the investor across the table responded, surprised, engaged, respectful. Suddenly, the boardroom came to life. Smiles appeared, postures relaxed. Real conversation began. Negotiations flowing seamlessly through Matteo's confident translations. He didn't just interpret words. He bridged cultures. He caught the nuance, the humor, the idioms. He connected. For nearly 2 hours, Matteo translated with precision, grace, and a humility that made everyone forget his uniform. By the end, the investors were shaking hands, laughing. Deals had been signed. Jordan stared at him, speechless. After the room emptied, Jordan approached him. "Who are you?" he asked quietly. Matteo looked at him. "You know my name?" "No." "Really?" Jordan pressed. "Who are you?" Matteo's eyes didn't waver. "In Argentina. I was a professor. Linguistics. University of Mendoza. 25 years. Then, why? My wife. She got sick. Very sick. Rare condition. The treatment was only available here. We moved. I sold everything. I tried to find work. But my credentials didn't transfer. I needed to clean, so I did." Jordan stared at him. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Matteo's voice was soft. "No one asked." The next day, Jordan made the announcement himself. Matteo Alvarez was promoted to Director of Global Language Strategy. He received a core office, a team, and a salary higher than most senior executives. He wore suits now, walked into meetings with confidence, and held the respect of an entire company. But some nights, long after the lights were off and the city slept, he would return to the janitor's closet. He'd roll out the old mop, hum an old tango song, and mop a hallway or two. Someone once asked him why. He said, "Because it reminds me who I am, and where I started, and that language, real language, begins with listening." At the far end of the executive floor, next to his new office, hung a photograph, Matteo in his blue janitor uniform, mop in hand, soft smile on his lips. Below it, a quote engraved in 9 languages. Greatness speaks softly.